Today's lesson is on percent, sales tax, and discounts. So first we're going to talk about percents. Percents are the result of expressing numbers as parts per hundred. Parts of 100. So the word percent actually means per hundred. That cent, like there's 100 cents in a dollar, cent is 100. Okay? So for example, if you earned 97 points out of 100 points on your last exam, you earned a 97%. And the way we denote percent is like two dots and on a line, a diagonal line. So we're going to be doing a couple things. We're going to first express decimals as percents, then percents as decimals, and then we're also going to do fractions as percents. So when we're doing expressing decimals as percents, what you're going to do is you're going to multiply by 100, or simply move the decimal places 2 spaces to the right. And then you're going to attach the percent sign. So for example, 0.68 is a decimal. Now this is also read 68 hundredths because the 8 is in the hundredth spot. So if I just move the decimal over 2 places, that gets me 68%. Now if I wanted to use multiply by 100, if you get out a calculator and type 0.68 times 100 and enter, it still gets you 68. So it's the same exact operation. I just think moving the decimal places over 2 places is a little bit easier. So on the next one, move the decimal over 2 places. That's 123%. 123% is more than 100, which means if you're talking about 123%, you're growing more than a full value of the whole. The next one, 0.025. If I move the decimal over 2 places, the decimal is in between the 2 and the 5, so that's 2.5%. Next, move the decimal over 2 places. That's 1,745%. And then the last one, there is no decimal on this one. So the decimal is after the second zero, because the 0 is in the 1 place. So I move the decimal over 2 places, and I'm filling both of those empty places with zeros. So that's 100 with 2 more zeros, percent. That's read 10,000%. Next, we're going to be doing just the opposite, expressing percents as decimals. So I want you to move the decimal over 2 places, this time to the left. Another way of thinking about that is dividing by 100. And then you're going to remove the percent sign. So the decimal on our first problem, 95%, is after the 5. I'm going to move that over 2 places, and that gets me 0.95. It's always best to put a 0 in front if you don't have a ones digit. So 95% as a decimal can be expressed 0.95. 250%, if I move the decimal over, that's 2.5 as a decimal. On 4, the decimal is right after the 4, so if I move it over 2 places to the left, that's 0.04, and I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 in front of that, which is the ones place. 1.2, move the decimal over 2 places, and fill in the zeros, so that's 0.012. And then the last one, when you move the decimal over 2 places for 100%, you just get 1.00. But in decimals, we don't really have to write 0.00. You don't have to write zeros after the decimal, so really, it's just 1. Our next type of problem is we're going to be expressing fractions as percents. So first thing you're going to do is take the numerator and divide the numerator by the denominator to get a decimal number. Then you're going to do the same thing that we did on the first example. Move the decimal over 2 places to the right, and then attach the percent sign. So our first example is 1/5. So I'm going to take out my calculator and type 1 divided by 5 in order to turn 1/5 into the decimal equivalent of 0.2. Now I can take the 0.2 and move the decimal over 2 places to get 20, fill in the zeros, 20, add the percent sign, 20%. And that's how you take a fraction and turn it into a percent. On our next problem, we have 4/3. So 4/3, I'm going to take 4 divided by 3, hit enter, and that gives me 1.333 repeating. The way I can write repeating is put a bar right above whatever digit or digits are repeating forever. So 1.3 repeating. Now to turn that into a percent, I'm going to move the decimal over 2 places. But remember, because there's repeating, it's not a filled in 0, it's a filled in 3, because the 3 keeps repeating. So this is going to be 1. So when I move the decimal over, I'm going to have 133.3 repeating percent, because the decimal ends after the second 3, but there's going to be continuing to be more and more and more 3s after that. That one was a little tricky. Our next example is 7/8. So if I take my calculator and take 7 divided by 8, that gets me in decimal 0.875. Now I'm taking that decimal and moving the decimal place over 2 places to get 87.5, add a percent sign. And our last example is 3/40, 3 divided by 40 in my calculator. And in a decimal equivalent, I'm getting 0.075. To get a percent, I'm going to take that decimal, move it over 2 places. That gets me 7.5, add a percent sign. Next, we're going to be talking about sales tax. Sales tax is a tax collected by local, state, and federal governments on purchases based on a given percent of the cost of the item. This percent is called sales tax rate. The sales tax amount is equal to the sales tax rate times the cost of the item. Now, don't forget that after you find the sales tax, you have to add that in, because you still have to pay for the item that you're purchasing plus sales tax on top of that. So here's an example. Suppose that the local sales tax is 8.5%, and you purchase a TV that costs $392. How much tax is paid? We're just talking about the tax. So first thing we're going to do is take our sales tax rate, which is 8.5%, and turn the 8.5% into a decimal. So I'm going to move that over 2 places. So that's going to be 0.085. When I'm trying to find the tax, the sales tax is going to be the sales tax rate in decimal, which is 0.085. And I'm going to multiply that by the cost of the item. So that's $392. I'm going to take my calculator out again and calculate what the value is here. So I have 0.085 times 392, and then I'm going to hit enter, and that's $33.32. So $33.32. Now, what is the cost of the TV? Well, we already know that the TV costs $392, but you're also going to have to take that $392 plus you have to pay the local sales tax, which is 33.32. When I add those two things together, I'm going to pull up my calculator again. I already have 33.32, so I'm just going to hit plus, and that takes the answer plus 392, and that gets me $425.32. So when you look at the price tag, when you're picking out your TV, it probably says $392. And then when you go up to the register and you pay for the TV, and they charge you $425.32, that's because you're having to pay the sales tax on top of your cost of the TV. Let's do one more example. This next example, the sales tax rate is 6% in this particular area. So if I change that percent to a decimal and move the decimal places over 2, that gets me 0.06. And I'm going to purchase a computer. So this computer costs $1,549. So how much tax is needing to be paid? So I'm going to take the tax, and that's going to equal the percent, which is 0.06 in decimal form, and I'm going to multiply that by the cost of my computer. Take out my calculator, clear out my last problem. 0.06 times 1549. That's going to get me $92.94. And that is the tax that I'm going to pay on top of the total cost of the TV. So the cost of the TV was $1,549. I'm going to add that to my sales tax, which is $92.94. So since I already have $92.94 in my calculator, instead of having to type it all over again, if you just hit plus, that takes whatever your answer was, and I'm going to add 1549, and that gets me $1,641.94. So my total cost of the TV is $1,641.94 for the original price of $1,549.